Love, in the hands of the avoidant, is a country they were born in, but never learned to live in. They know its name, they carry its passport, but they cannot find their way home. These are not the same thing. Loving someone and caring for someone are not interchangeable, and the avoidant is perhaps the clearest demonstration of how profoundly those two things can exist in separation. This distinction is not a small philosophical nuance. It is the entire explanation for the particular kind of pain that comes with loving an avoidant, the confusion of feeling genuinely, unmistakably loved in certain moments, while simultaneously feeling invisible, unconsidered, and profoundly alone in others. Both experiences are real. Neither is an illusion, and the tension between them is not a contradiction to be resolved. It is the central, unexamined wound of avoidant attachment made visible. To understand how this is possible, the internal world of the avoidant needs to be examined with honesty. Love for them lives primarily as a feeling, an internal state, something that exists within the architecture of their own emotional experience, rich, genuine, sometimes overwhelming in its intensity. They feel it deeply in the moments it surfaces past the layers of suppression they have spent decades constructing, when they are with you in a rare moment of openness, when they look at you in a way that makes everything else feel peripheral. That is real. The love is not performed. It is not strategic. It is as genuine as love gets. But love as a feeling and love as a practice are two entirely different demands on a person. And it is in the practice, in the daily, unglamorous, consistent act of caring, that the avoidance attachment system quietly fails the people who love them most. Caring requires something the avoidant finds almost structurally impossible: sustained attentiveness to another person's inner world, not just in the moments that feel natural or inspired, but in the ordinary moments. The unremarkable Tuesday, when you are anxious about something and need to be asked how you are. The moment you go quiet in a way that is different from your usual quiet, and someone who truly cares notices the difference. The space between grand gestures where real intimacy is actually built, in the checking in, the remembering, the prioritizing of your emotional experience, even when it is inconvenient, even when it requires them to step outside their own internal preoccupation and into yours. This is where the avoidant disappears, not because they do not love you, but because sustained attentiveness to someone else's emotional needs requires a level of self-regulation and outward focus that their nervous system was never taught to maintain. They were raised, in one way or another, in an emotional environment where their own needs were either dismissed, inconsistently met, or made to feel like a burden. They learned to self-contain, to process internally, to need inwardly. And a person who has been trained to collapse their own emotional world into as small a space as possible does not naturally expand outward into the emotional world of another. Not consistently, not reliably, not in the way that makes someone feel genuinely held over time. And so what you experience is a love that arrives in flashes. Brilliant, warm, entirely convincing flashes, and then long stretches of a particular kind of emotional neglect that is all the more painful, precisely because the flashes were real. You are not imagining the love, but you are also not imagining the absence of care. You are living inside the gap between what they feel and what they are capable of expressing through consistent action. That gap is where the loneliness lives. That particular, specific loneliness of being in a relationship and feeling alone, not because no love exists, but because love without care cannot hold a person, cannot make them feel safe, cannot answer the most basic human need of feeling that someone in their ordinary daily existence is thinking of you, considering you, choosing you, not in a single dramatic moment, but in the accumulation of small, unremarkable moments that add up to a life being built together. There is also something the avoidant does that compounds this dynamic in a way that is rarely spoken about directly. They receive care poorly, not just give it poorly, receive it. When you show up for them, when you are considerate and attentive and emotionally generous, something in them does not fully absorb it. It lands on the surface and slides off, not because they are ungrateful in any conscious sense, but because receiving care requires the same vulnerability that giving it does. It requires allowing yourself to be affected by another person's attentiveness, to let it matter, to let it in. And letting things in is the precise action the avoidant's entire psychological structure was built to prevent. So there is a tragic circularity here. They cannot fully give care, and they cannot fully receive it. The very currency of deep relationship, the attentiveness, the consideration, the daily small acts of emotional presence, moves through their relational world like water through cupped hands, present for a moment, gone before it can accumulate into something sustaining. And you have been standing in this dynamic, pouring yourself into someone who loves you and yet somehow leaves you perpetually thirsty, wondering how a person can look at you the way they sometimes look at you and still forget to ask how you are, wondering how love and neglect can occupy the same relationship without either canceling the other out. The answer is that they can and they do. And it is not a reflection of your value. It is a reflection of their capacity. Love without care is an incomplete thing, beautiful in its way, the way an unfinished building can be beautiful. You can see what it was trying to become. You can see the intention in the structure, but it cannot shelter you. It cannot hold the weight of a life. And you were never asking for too much by wanting both. You were simply asking for the whole thing, and you deserved it entirely. All along.